All right, what's up, everybody? I got a special guest today, Mr. Jay Cooper. Back in the day, we went on the Big Deal Real Estate podcast, which you can still find on YouTube. But today, I brought him on. We want to chat about Vancouver real estate and just some of the negativity that's going on throughout the market. So, thanks for coming through, Jay.
Hey, no problem, Connor. This is awesome.
Yes, sir. So, how are you finding the market right now in Vancouver?
It's slow. I know social media, it's all about excitement and, I got to tell you guys right now, I'll be honest, it's a boring market. My opens have been really slow, not a lot of private appointments. Wish I had something more exciting to report, but that's kind of been the Vancouver market. It's price sensitive, right? Some of the higher end is a little bit slower than what I would call the entry level product. But I wish we had a little more excitement. I was hoping that first June 25 basis point cut was going to kind of juice the market a little bit. Hasn't had that much of an impact, but I am seeing some first-time buyers starting to kick the tires again, and I'm seeing some savvy investors start to come off the sidelines because I think they realize now that the hiking cycle is pretty well behind us, and we're going to start to see some relief on the interest rates.
Yeah, no, I found even for myself, trying to create content about Vancouver real estate in this market, I'm everything has been the exact same for 8 months. Am I going to talk about the interest rates again? Am I going to talk about the market potentially crashing again? What do you talk about in a market like this, right?
I know, usually I have so many ideas. I can crank out videos like you wouldn't believe, and I'll go on to, I'll look up some articles in the Globe and Mail, and there'd be lots of content that my creativity is just explosive. But right now I'm looking, there's really not that much going on.
There's not a lot going on. And even on the seller side, trying to price product is extreme. It's very hard to have those conversations with your seller. I have this townhome right now where there's comparable sales. One is at $693 and one is at $740. So I'm just you can price it here, but I honestly can't tell you what's going to happen, right? Because the range for where those sales are happening is so wide, so difficult to have those conversations with your sellers right now. It's just overall very weird market right now, I would say.
Yeah, and I feel like sellers are pretty well wanting all-time peak prices, if not above all-time peak prices. So they're a bit unrealistic, but at the same time, buyers, they can't qualify, right, with the stress test and everything else. So it feels very much like a standoff between buyers or sellers. So far, nobody's really budging. I get a lot of guys on my channel saying, well, the sellers eventually are going to have to capitulate and drop the prices. I'm not so sure. They don't have to sell. There's a ton of, I was just watching Bob Rennie the other day. He said something forget what it was, 400 billion, something like that, of clear title equity in the Vancouver market alone. A lot of these guys don't have mortgages. So and that's the other thing, I don't see any distress whatsoever. I don't see foreclosures. I don't see distressed sales. I think people that were waiting for that are probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, in the Valley, there is foreclosures popping up now, but it's not what people think, right? People automatically associate foreclosure with amazing deal, which is not the case, right? If the buyer's there at the market price, sure, it's in foreclosure, but it just sells at whatever the market price is. So it's not they're listed at 1.5 million and you're going to get it for $1 million just because it's a foreclosure, right? You might get it for 1,475.
Yeah.
1.4. Maybe you get a 25, 30 grand discount for the additional risk you're taking on for buying the foreclosure, but it's not this ridiculous deal that people think it is, and there's very few of them. There's not very many popping up.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been waiting. Let's just wait. Maybe we'll get some more distress here and scoop up some bargain basement prices, and I've been kind of saying all along that's probably pretty unlikely. Yeah, the foreclosure rates, I don't have the number offhand, but it's fractions of a percent. It's ticked up a bit, but it's not enough to materially impact anything.
Yeah, it's up huge. It's up 60%, but it's up 60% off of 0.1% or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess where do you think, I have an opinion, but I'm curious, what do you think the market's going to do over the next year? And then where do you think it's going to go in the next 3?
Yeah, so I always preface this by saying, we're just speculating here. The data is just changing. It's a guess. That's all it is. I think the next cut may happen in July. It looks more likely that it's going to be in September. But I think a lot of this has to do not so much with the rates themselves, but the psychology of the market. And as people realize that the interest rate cycle is hiking cycle is over, rates are going to start to come down. There's going to be more people that come off the sidelines, and I actually think the full market will be pretty robust. Right now, I'd say we're in a fairly balanced market in Vancouver, but whenever you get into a balanced market, I always tell people it's an opportunity, because most of the time you are in a seller's market and you're in multiple offers, and you don't want to wait till we're in a more competitive market here, because now you're up against multiple offers. You got to write subject free, no subject to finance, insurance, inspection. You pretty much all got to waive all those, right? And it's just it's an awful situation to be in for buyers. So
Yeah.
I think there's maybe a bit of a window, a bit of an opportunity here.
Well, that's the other thing that people don't think about is like people are so concerned with price, right? Like I will pay more for the security of, and I'm not even saying that you have to pay more. I'm just saying that I would pay a little bit more to be able to have those subjects in my offer to make sure that I'm doing things properly and buying a house that isn't falling apart. Like I bought my house October 2023, so rates were 7%. My interest rate is like 6.7. And, it's like a pretty nice character home with like wood beams and a pool in the backyard, and like something that if it was listed in the spring market, it was going in like 8, 9, 10 offers over ask, subject free, which I couldn't do. I can't write subject free, right? I need subjects in there because my income is all over the place. I'm a realtor, right? So I bought it in October, and the market was completely dead. October 2023, if you remember that. Like nothing was happening. And I still had to compete for this house with 4 other people in Abbotsford, right? So if that was listed in spring of 2024, there's no way I was buying that home. It's going to sell over ask, subject free, et cetera, et cetera. So I think a lot of people, they're so fixated on the price, but it's like, if you're going to live there for 5 to 8 years and you want to just enjoy the home, like who cares if it goes down 2, 3%? That's not even a guarantee, right? And who knows what the conditions will be if the home goes down another 2, 3, 5%. Maybe the winner of that bid at the time will have to be subject free, which you can't do, right? So there's so many variables. It's not all just price, right? So
yeah, I agree. And these guys that are, to your point, people, first-time buyers in particular, they'll say, well, what if I buy now and next year the property is worth 5 or 10% less than I paid for it? Again, it's an unrealized loss. It doesn't matter. You're not a speculator. You're not looking to flip that property next week or next month, and you shouldn't be. It shouldn't be seen as a long-term investment here.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess what would you say? I guess that's what you would say to those first-time home buyers is like, hey, if you're buying right now, just understand that you're buying for like a 5 to 8 year term. Doesn't matter if prices go down. I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. I literally bought my first condo. Dude, the timing, it was the worst freaking time ever.
Yeah.
I bought it 2 weeks before they introduced a stress test in the back end of 2017. The condo market had been running hot for that entire year. I paid $275, and I think 6 months later it was worth $220,000, right?
Well, like when I bought my first condo, I remember within like a month, they eliminated the HST, which was a huge expense. And then I looked at my assessed value, a year or two later, and it was down in price. And it's kind of, a kick in the balls, but it's on paper. I'm not looking to sell it. And then, of course, the market picked up and condo prices basically doubled.
Yeah.
They've been fairly flat for the last 4 or 5 years, but we'll see what happens here. I mean, long term, as I've said before, I'm really, really bullish. I don't know why anybody would have a negative outlook on Vancouver or the Fraser Valley in the long run. I mean, it's just, we're surrounded by oceans and mountains in the ALR, and it takes way too long to get anything built. We're not building like a 21st century city. A lot of projects have been shelved now because the pro formas don't work anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just going to cause, in the long run, prices are going to increase.
Well, I just saw, I think it's in Toronto, new home sale, they're down 75% from last year. And last year wasn't even a good year. Last year was already near like all-time lows for new home sales. And now we're down 75% from that point.
Yeah.
Right? So in 3 to 4 years from now, that's going to be 75% less homes than what normally gets built and what normally comes to market.
Yeah.
So people love to talk about math. Like this is like probably the most common comment that I see on any post I put. The math isn't mathing, bro. It's not affordable. Prices need to come down. Well, what about this math? What about 75% less homes being built and 1.2 million people immigrating here? Like, does everybody forget about that math?
Well, CMHC, we need 3.5 million new homes built by 2030. That's in addition to what we're already building, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. I can tell you right now. We don't have the skilled labor. It's not going to happen. It's a pipe dream, right? So prices will continue to go higher. And on the math point, I get those guys all the time. The math doesn't work out. Blue collar income, typical median income in Vancouver is around a little over $90,000. That's family household income. The detached house is $3.5 million. Doesn't make any sense. Well, it's not correlated at all to local income.
No.
Neither is Hong Kong. Vancouver, I think last time we looked, it traded around 15 times annualized income. So you need 15 times the typical household income to buy in Vancouver. In Hong Kong, it's something like 35 times. So we're not even close. Like, if you guys think Vancouver's expensive now, you have no idea what the future is going to look like here.
Yeah. Well, and I always talk about too, like, again, the math isn't mathing. It's unaffordable. It's local incomes are so far. The delta between local incomes and prices doesn't make sense. Well, okay, yeah, but if somebody's buying a $2 million home with $1.5 million cash and they make $200,000 a year, well, that's a price to income ratio that makes sense, right? So it's like, how much cash are people putting down in this market to buy homes? I personally very rarely ever deal with somebody just putting down 20%. If it's a townhome or a detached home, it's 35, 50, 70, 80% down everything.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do have some first-time buyers that are going high ratio and putting down 15%, but most of the time they're putting down well over 20%, 25, 30%, 50% is not uncommon, right? Yeah. So there's just a ton of equity out there.
Yeah. Well, and then I know people talk about like the rents, right? Well, okay, fair enough. People are putting down cash to buy these homes. How are people going to afford rent, right? Okay, so the rent to income ratios are starting not to make sense, right? But what if there's more people servicing that rent payment, right? So people are looking at a one bedroom being like, this is unaffordable for one person, right? And I know this sounds terrible. I'm just saying this is a possibility. What if two people are making that payment?
Well, we have precedence for this because if you look at rents in San Francisco, I looked over there and I was looking at rental units, and I saw a one bedroom for $700 a month in San Francisco. I thought, wow, that seems like a bargain. I looked closer and they had 2 bunk beds set up. So it was actually 4 payments of $700. You know what I mean? So that's what's going to happen in Vancouver is more people are going to be just
servicing that debt.
Yeah.
Or servicing the rental or even mortgages too, right? I think you'll start seeing a lot more people having like 2, 3, 4 people on title as opposed to just one person buying the home.
And you also see that in the presale market, right? Like you look at these presales, they just get smaller and smaller and smaller. You talked about how some of them, like they're building in Toronto now without patios. They're trying to find a way to build and market these things at a price point that people can afford. And the only way you do that is by continuously making them smaller. So like right now, a one bedroom, maybe it used to be 850 square feet in the 70s. Now it's 550. They're starting to build these micro units in Surrey and in Richmond that are, 275 square feet.
Yeah.
Right. That's going to be the future. Yeah. Don't shoot the messenger here. But
don't shoot the messenger, man. But it's like, I always look at it like, I think of it from like, hey, what could they creatively do to actually make these units smaller? What could they creatively do where people can service these payments? And there's still a lot of tools in that arsenal for things to get more unaffordable and the math to get worse than it already is, right? And I look at these micro units and I'm like, okay, today they have a microwave. Do they need a microwave? Right? Like they could probably take that out. The fridge is 24 inches. What if they made it like 16, right? Like, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying like that's a possibility, right?
Well, and another way they're going to do it, I think, is might not work everywhere, but definitely in downtown urban centers, get rid of the parking stall because these areas are extremely walkable. Like I wouldn't encourage somebody to buy one of these in, Burquitlam somewhere. But if you're in Yaletown or you're in False Creek, getting rid of that parking stall, getting rid of the vehicle and walking to work or bike, everything's nearby. You think about it, you're saving $700 a month on a car payment to service that mortgage to live in a little bit nicer neighborhood rather than moving out maybe to a suburb somewhere. Right. So I think that's going to be the future in urban cores. I think the private automobile is actually probably on the way out. just shifting gears here, I just was watching the other day, they've got these autonomous vehicles. They don't have steering wheels. You get into them, they take you where you want to go. I mean, I think that's going to be the future, because you can't drive downtown anymore. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It took me 45 minutes to find parking the other day. So
yeah, no, well, I used to be a plumber, and I know in New York, these plumbing companies pay like $1 million a year in parking tickets. Because like, what do? You just have to like park illegally and just eat the ticket and like build it into the cost of the job, right?
Oh,
so
parking's getting really expensive. And parking stalls alone, you could be looking at $40,000 or $50,000 added to the purchase price just for one parking stall, right?
Well, that's what they are in Surrey now. So Surrey, they're like 60 grand for a parking stall, right? So I mean, Vancouver is probably like getting up to close to 100 grand for a parking stall, right? But yeah, even just like thinking out loud, like creatively, like, hey, what can they do to make the units cheaper and bigger? Like, I'm not saying they're going to do this. I'm just saying like, this is like the stuff that I think about for like how they could possibly do something like that. It's like in the 70s and 80s, they did shared laundry, right? So instead of having a laundry for every single unit, why not just have 100 units split 10? Instead of having 100 washing machines, there's 10 in the building, and there's that, right? Like, what if they brought some combination back of shared amenities for these buildings or something like that, right? So I don't know.
They'll get creative. They'll find ways to do it. But
yeah. So as an investor, right? I mean, it's tough being an investor right now. But what would you be looking at right now?
Well, as far as it pertains to Vancouver, I think where you're getting a decent cap rate is probably, again, these smaller studios and one bedrooms. That's where I would be looking. Because as you move up the chain, you kind of get a diminishing rate of return. You tend to get a little bit lower cap rate. Like, I don't think it makes sense to buy a luxury product and rent that out right now. The cap rates they just don't make any sense. The interest, the insurance, the strata payments, and everything else. It's and now the financing costs. I think it is kind of pushing the boundaries of what makes sense in terms of investment property. For a principal residence, absolutely, because you get to capture those capital gains tax-free. On the investment front, though, we've gone from formerly 50% you would be taxed on the gain. That inclusion rate's now gone up to 67%.
Yep.
Which is crazy. It's already too high. I don't know what this government's doing, but they're causing major problems, and I think you'll get less investors and potentially less product getting built as a result of that. All these policies have that same thing in common. They just reduce the product.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? It's just like every single policy, when you try to mess around with a free market and you try to control supply and demand artificially like this, you're just kicking the can down the road. It's just like, I like to look at it, it's like you're playing whack-a-mole, right? So it's like you have a stopper and it's like, yeah, boom, and then another different problem surfaces over here from you hitting that one.
Yeah, I've used that analogy many times. I think that's an apt description. You just can't, it's like pulling back on an elastic band. Eventually it's just going to pop. There's just too much. It comes down to supply and demand, and unless you fix the structural problem of not having enough supply, we're going to continue to have this be an issue here.
100%. Yeah. So something I've been noticing over the last basically 2.5 years now is the financial creator space. If you go to like any financial creators, doesn't matter who it is, whether it's like Tom Story, me, you, Steve Karish, anybody in the space, right? Stocks, half of their comments are extremely negative. Like, you can't say anything about anything without just like getting the brunt of it, right? So I don't know, have you been finding that?
Yeah, so I mean, in regards to social media, negativity sells. I don't know why it is that way. It's unfortunate, but whenever I try to put out something that's the clickbait, negative headline, it just performs way better on social media. Now, usually I spin it back to why it's all both.
Why it's positive.
Yeah, exactly. But for whatever reason, that negativity sells. It's just the way it is. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people are priced out of the market. So, they turn to a scapegoat, which is the greedy realtors, the investors, the development industry, the speculators, which is kind of crazy because you need to work with the development industry to build more homes. And furthermore, the whole war on speculation we need, speculators are financing new construction, which is what we need desperately.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we're going to war with speculators in the development industry. If anything, we should be incentivizing that kind of behavior. So I don't understand why people don't get this. I mean, maybe they need to go back to school and learn the basic fundamental law of supply and demand. I don't know. People just don't get it. And I think to some extent they're just angry.
Yeah.
They're really angry at the situation.
The other thing that I hear is like prices have been driven up because of speculation.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, maybe there's some degree of truth to that. I don't even know how you would measure that. I think you're just saying stuff, right? But the only reason why people are speculating to begin with is they're speculating because we have short supply of homes, right? So it's like, again, the root problem comes back to supply, right? If there wasn't a supply problem, you wouldn't have people speculating.
No, because prices wouldn't be going up. When prices are going up 20, 30%, that's when you get this speculative behavior. And it's not people that were even necessarily speculators. They were buying a home as a primary residence. They made a bunch of money on it. Hey, why don't we flip it and buy the next one and the next one? The market is creating that speculative activity, not the other way around. Speculation does not drive prices.
No, exactly. Like in other markets, like, I don't know, like freaking Indiana in the States, right? I don't know if homes, last time I checked, a home in Indiana was like 150 grand or something like that, right? You don't have people like speculating on pre-sales in Indiana or like Cincinnati. Why? Because prices have been flat for like 15 years.
Exactly. Where you get the speculation is Vancouver, Toronto, your urban cores where the prices are going ballistic, or have been. They've been, like I say, the last 4 or 5 years, things have been pretty slow, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know, man. When it comes to that, I mean, like you said, right? It's like, who's going to buy the pre-sales that, bring supply to market, that keep down the cost of rent, that keep, obviously the price of home values are going to go up, but it at least slows the trajectory of which they go up when new product gets brought to market. Who else is going to buy that, right? Like, it's going to be investors and speculators, and then you're going to have a very small portion of people who actually want to buy those homes to live in, right? I mean, the terms are meant more for an investor who's basically trying to time the market, right? Like, that's what the setup is.
Yeah.
So
people don't seem to understand. I mean, this is how homes get built. The pre-sale developer has to pre-sell 60, 70% to get financing. That's when the shovels get in the ground, and that's when they can start building. These people seem to be dreaming in Technicolor that, why don't we just have the government and the NDP and David Eby can build all the housing? Well, look at the track record of these guys. I mean, you have to have the only solution to this is going to be a pre-market enterprise solution. Now, maybe they partner with the government and they get some breaks on development cost levies and CACs and that kind of thing, but it's going to be the free market that deals with this. The government cannot build 3.5 million new homes by 2030. So, yeah.
How do you think that happens? Like, to me, when I see some of these comments, I'm just like, how do you not understand, like, this is how it works? Like, this is supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
How is it possible that there's this many people that have a fundamental lack of understanding of basic supply and demand?
It boggles the mind. I know, because I get the same comments on my channel all the time. And
like, people saying, like, abolish landlords. Yeah. Right? Like, how does that make any sense at all?
Well, if abolish the landlords, get rid of the greedy investors, and now the guys that were renting, now they're going to be able to buy these condos for pennies on the dollar. No, come on. There's a reason why these guys are renting in the first place. Again, don't shoot the messenger here, but they're renting because they cannot qualify for a mortgage. It's incredibly difficult to qualify for a mortgage. Canada always has been, became even more difficult with the stress test. Now you've got the higher interest rates. What are people I guess are qualifying at over 7-8% now? Yeah, it's insane.
It's crazy, man. So I guess, I know you've been doing the YouTube thing for a while. I know you've seen some success with that. You're like, what, over 4,000 subs or something like that?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I haven't seen that much success on YouTube yet, but I'm still just plugging away at it. I still stay consistent with my videos every single week, and I would like to get to where you're at right now. But I guess, why did you go the YouTube route, and how's that been?
Yeah, so I actually had my own thoughts on this. So a lot of these platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you got in early to TikTok when you kind of caught the wave. They were able to make some of it. But these platforms are all very saturated. Everybody's doing it. Everybody has a TikTok. Everyone's posting on Instagram and Twitter or X. And so they're very, very saturated. It's hard to get your message through unless you've got tens and tens of thousands of followers. They have a low barrier to entry. Like I can pick up my phone and make a TikTok video or whatever. I don't spend a lot of time on it anymore, but what I do sometimes do is if I'm 15 minutes early for a showing or whatever, I'll do a quick video. I think TikTok's good for building your brand, making people around you aware that you exist. But the deal with YouTube is there's a lot less competition because it's very, very hard. It's the hardest of the platforms to build a presence on, I think. So not many people are doing it. Like if I look at Vancouver, I can think of I can basically count on one hand. It's like 5 people. You've got Big Land, who does really well. You've got the Vancouver Life. You got the Vancouver Podcast. You've got, a couple others that I can think of. In the Fraser Valley, you've got Steve Karash. You've got you got a couple of others, but there's not all that many.
There's less than like 10 people who are actually doing it.
Yeah. So it's really hard and it takes a long time and it's slow and it's arduous to build up a presence on that platform. But there's less competition. It's not as saturated. And the thing is that, you said some time ago, views don't necessarily equal influence.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm finding with the YouTube. Even though you might not get as many views on it, there's a lot of intent there because someone clicks on a video, say they're watching a 10-minute video on getting qualified for a mortgage or why you should try and avoid selling a tenanted property. Like every time I do those videos, I get some kind of a listing presentation or a call out of it. So they're people that are further down the pipeline and have high intent. And that's why I think you should continue doing what you're doing with that. Keep doing your short form, but I think the long form content is actually something I'm going to focus on more going forward because that's when I get the phone calls and I get a high level of intent and you're identifying your ideal client. Like the people that call me, they're homeowners, they're business owners, they want to work with me. In a lot of cases, they're pre-qualified or they want to connect with my mortgage broker. And we tend to get along really well because they kind of feel like they know me because they've been watching my channel for the last year or 2 or 3. So I think that's, I still think that's the best thing overall in terms of building a business.
I think there's a lot more longevity in YouTube, for sure.
Yeah.
There's some videos you post that get views forever, right? For the rest of your life. And I think it's way easier to build a monetizable platform on YouTube, and it's way easier to direct traffic on YouTube than it would be on short form. So
yeah.
I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to focus more on the long form too. I've done really well on the short form side of things, but for whatever reason on the long form, I just haven't figured it out yet. Like I don't even have like a solid video over.
Yeah, the short form is a big, huge funnel. You can capture a lot of people. I notice in my neighborhood, people will point out and say, oh yeah, I saw you on TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's cool in that regard. Whereas YouTube is a much more focused funnel. What I think the opportunity for you could be, try to build that big TikTok funnel, short form content, and try to funnel them into your content. And I think you're maybe already doing that a bit. I think that you'll see results, but it takes a long time to start to get results. Like I was making videos for probably a couple of years before the phone calls started to kind of trickle in. And even now, it's not enough to build a sustainable business. It's part of my business, but I'm still doing open houses. I'm still showing. I'm still, I still do some online leads. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I found like, because with TikTok, man, the viewer isn't the same as like I found people who have an X following like Big Land and Daniel Foch and all those guys. They can drive traffic to their YouTube channel pretty easy from X because it's the same viewer. Right? It's like analytical people who want to dig deeper into a topic, whereas driving the traffic from like a TikTok or an Instagram to YouTube is completely different because they're 2 very different viewers, right? Like most of the people on these platforms aren't interested in diving deep into the topic. They just want like the spark notes of whatever that topic is. So I don't know, it hasn't worked very well directing traffic from short form to long form. I think it would work a lot better if I was on X or Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it, and then drove traffic from there. But I don't know, I don't really see myself as a writer, so.
Yeah, and I think too, if you can't try to do too much at one time, you also kind of got to focus on one or 2 things.
Yeah, I sort of service my business, right? Like I kind of spend all day just like putting out content and whatever else, right? So, yeah.
Right. Now, what's your strategy overall with the short form content? Like what kind of videos do you find most effective?
Property tour videos have definitely been the most effective. But they take more work to shoot. You have to go to a property to shoot it, you have to edit it, blah, blah. Second to that, though, is green screen. So green screening news articles works amazing. Green screening, renderings of like a pre-sale project, green screening. Like if you're going to talk about, the top 5 neighborhoods in Vancouver, maybe green screen a picture of each neighborhood when you talk about it. Green screens work amazing. They're a good pattern interrupt because they kind of interrupt somebody's feed, right? Like suddenly it's like boom article or boom picture or boom whatever. So green screens work amazing and they don't require you to like actually be physically somewhere else, which is great. But yeah, definitely property tour videos have been the number one. It's basically a free Facebook ad, right? It's like the same thing if you're going to shoot a video of a property and then run it as an ad. That's all you're doing, but for free.
And are you running any ads, or do you prefer to just grow organic?
I've never really done the paid ads thing. Like I've tried it here and there, and I've closed deals off of it, but for the most part, it's always been organic for me. Yeah.
How important is social media influence in the real estate industry? So, do you think that's going to become more and more important? Do you think agents that aren't doing it are going to be at a competitive disadvantage?
100%, yeah. And I'm not saying that you can't be very successful without social media, because you can. I mean, there's tons of realtors out there making way more money than me. Just do their calls and their door knocking, and they're very consistent with it, and they're hardworking. But I think more and more as time passes, like everybody's on social media, right? I don't want to buy anything off of somebody who cold calls me. Nothing. The second I realize it's a sale, I'm like, hey, is this a sales call or do I owe you money? Sales call? Okay, not right now. Boom, hang up every single time, right? I'm not talking to any salespeople on the phone. So, yeah. And I think most of my generation is like that, right? And the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be my generation who's buying all the homes. So I think, most of the people who are buying, selling homes will be using realtors that they found on social media in the next 10 years. I think that's where it's going. I think today, people are upset about getting 200 views on a video, and in 5 years, it's going to be 50 views, right? Because more and more people that turn to content creation, the more competition there is to actually show up on somebody else's feed, the less views you're going to get for putting out content. And I think it's like, it only gets harder. It gets harder every year. 7 years ago, you could have posted a still photo on Instagram and gotten 10,000 views, just like a picture of yourself, right? Now you got to create a reel with a freaking hook and then a story and then subtitles and jumping in and out and editing and you didn't have to do any of that. Even 3 years ago, there was no subtitles. I don't even think reels was a thing. You just shot a video, right? So it only gets harder every single year. And I think, what I tell people is it's not just real estate. It's freaking anything, right? I used to be a plumber. If I were going to start a plumbing business today, I would do it off of content. So I can eventually graduate out of plumbing, right? If I'm going to be a realtor, I'm going to build my real estate business off of content so I can eventually graduate out of the day-to-day sales of real estate, right? And maybe run a team or become a developer or sell courses, or it just gives you job security and it gives you the ability to pivot when you grow a following. Steve Saretsky probably makes, a full-time income, I don't know if he actually does, I'm literally just guessing, off of just putting out videos because they get 30,000 views every week, right? So, he could probably just not even sell real estate anymore if he wanted to. He could just put out a course on how to build a YouTube following and just make videos, right? Because he's already built that following.
Well, on that note, do you want to plug your course for a minute? Because I actually signed up and took that. I thought it was pretty cool.
Oh, no way. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, so I got the Viral Agent now. I think it's $200 and it's good. It covers everything, short form content, A to Z, why we do what we do, how to post, when to post, how much to post, and what type of content you should be posting. So I think, even if you're not a realtor, if you're just anybody, it's definitely, you'll get the value out of it, right? I've shot almost 7,000 videos to learn everything that I put in that course. I shot every freaking video, stupid dancing ones, pointing at the freaking bubbles on the screen, every stupid freaking Gen Z video that you could think of.
Yeah, I saw the one with Drake.
Drake slaps her in the face. So I shot them all, right, to figure this stuff out. But yeah, I think if you're anybody and you want to build a business, I think you should do it through content, because it's building killing two birds with one stone. You're building a personal brand and indirectly you're selling real estate. Why not do both at the same time?
I agree, 100%.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's it. You got anything else to say?
All good here. Yeah,
All
we've
good.
covered everything, I think.
Okay, if you're still watching, I appreciate you. Please subscribe to the channel. Go check out Jay Cooper's channel. Like this video. And if you want early access to pre-sale deals, you can sign up using the link below. It'll get you access to the Equity Club. Other than that, appreciate you guys. See you next time. Peace.